The city was already alive with noise, horns, footsteps, and the endless rush of traffic. But above this busy chaos, tragedy unfolded silently. A stork hung upside down from the high electric wires, its thin legs cruelly entangled by a dangling thread. With every weak flap of its wings, the bird's body swung helplessly, brushing dangerously close to the humming current. People stopped mid-step, eyes drawn upward, phones raised, voices trembling. Some whispered prayers, others shouted in panic, yet no one dared to move closer. Fear of the deadly wires froze them where they stood. The stork's breathing grew shallow, its feathers trembling in the wind. Every passing second deepened the silence within the crowd. A fragile life hung between survival and death. Beneath the wires, the city's heartbeat slowed. Cars that once pushed forward impatiently now braked, their drivers staring upward in disbelief. Pedestrians stopped mid-crossing, their daily routines forgotten as all eyes fixed on the dangling stork. Phones rose into the air, recording the fragile struggle, each frame capturing desperation. Voices clashed in the crowd, some urging immediate action, others warning of deadly consequences. A few men stepped forward, then stopped, paralyzed by the danger. The bird let out a faint cry, its wings trembling against the unforgiving sky. The people below felt the weight of helplessness, yet deep inside, one question lingered: who would take the first step? Among the anxious crowd, one man's hands trembled as he pulled out his phone. With a desperate voice, he dialed the police emergency line, describing the helpless stork trapped above the deadly wires. The operator's response was firm: "Help is on the way, stay back." Moments later, the faint wail of sirens pierced through the city's noise. Heads turned, relief sparking in weary faces. The restless crowd shifted, parting like a wave as a white police truck rolled in. Uniformed officers stepped out with focused eyes, their presence commanding silence. For the first time, hope flickered in the air. The city's guardians had arrived. The crowd held its breath as the massive rescue truck halted beneath the tangled wires. Its engine rumbled, echoing like a heartbeat through the tense silence. Slowly, the hydraulic lift unfolded, rising toward the sky like a lifeline sent from the ground to heaven. An officer stepped forward, his boots firm against the pavement, his expression calm yet determined. Thick insulated gloves covered his hands, the only barrier between him and a deadly current. Every movement drew the crowd closer together, their eyes fixed on him with both fear and hope. The stork flapped weakly above, its body swaying. The moment had arrived, one life depending entirely on human courage. The hydraulic lift groaned loudly, its metal arms stretching higher and higher toward the tangled wires. The officer stood firmly on the rising platform, eyes locked on the struggling bird above. Below, the entire city seemed frozen in silence, thousands of breaths held at once. Children clutched their parents' hands, elders whispered prayers, and phones recorded every second of the climb. The stork sensed movement, its weak wings fluttering in panic, then pausing as if recognizing the faint promise of rescue. Step by step, the officer drew closer, his gloved hands ready, his heartbeat steady against the roar of the machinery. The city's hope now rose with him, inch by inch, toward the fragile life hanging above. As the platform neared the wires, faint sparks hissed and flickered, crackling with deadly energy. The officer paused, steadying his breath, every muscle tensed against the danger hovering inches away. One wrong move here could mean instant electrocution. The stork dangled motionless, its fragile legs cruelly wrapped in the stubborn thread. Slowly, with trembling precision, the officer extended his gloved hand, fingers brushing against the tangled mess. Below, the crowd erupted in gasps, every motion magnified by fear. A child buried his face in his mother's arms, unable to watch. Time seemed to stretch endlessly as man and bird hung together between danger and salvation. With steady hands, the officer pulled out a small cutter and worked carefully around the tangled thread. One final snip, and the cruel grip was broken. The stork's exhausted body collapsed gently into his gloved hands, too weak to resist, too tired to fight. For a moment, silence ruled the street. Then, like a wave, the crowd erupted into cheers and applause, clapping and shouting with pure relief. Children jumped with joy, elders wiped tears, and strangers hugged as if victory belonged to them all. The hydraulic lift descended slowly, carrying both rescuer and rescued, a fragile life cradled safely against human courage. The moment the officer stepped down, the fragile Stork was carefully placed inside a padded carrier. Without wasting time, the police rushed it to the nearest animal care center. There, a team of veterinarians stood ready, their hands moving swiftly with practiced care. They cleaned the wounds on its legs, removed the harsh thread marks, and applied soothing medicine. A tube of water gently rehydrated the weak bird, while soft bedding cradled its tired body. For the first time in days, the Stork lay still, no longer in pain but in quiet safety. Over the next 2 days, it rested peacefully, slowly regaining strength under watchful human care. 2 days later, the care center was filled with quiet excitement. As the morning sun poured through the windows, golden light reflected off the Stork's feathers, now smooth and clean. Slowly, it rose to its feet, standing tall once more, a sign of strength returning. The vets exchanged warm smiles, their efforts finally rewarded with success. The fragile creature was ready to reclaim the sky, and the city was ready to witness hope take flight. The final day arrived. At a quiet riverside, where the sky stretched endlessly and the water shimmered in the sun, the police and rescuers gathered with the Stork. Gently, the officer opened his hands. For a moment, the bird hesitated, feeling the breeze run through its feathers. Then, with a powerful flap, the Stork lifted into the air, soaring higher and higher into the open sky. Cheers erupted, echoing across the riverbanks, filling the air with joy.